It wasn't exactly inspiring at the start, but it was a 42-6 victory. So that's a net positive. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks Reaction Edition. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post-Oregon win over Stanford to improve to 5-0. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show. This is going to be a true reaction show. I was broadcasting a game for Southern Utah against Central Arkansas, hence the button-down collared shirt. I'd take the suit off. I had it on for a while. I had another lightning delay to deal with, which, goodness gracious, I don't know how the Thunderbirds keep having that. So this will definitely be a true reaction video, but let's start with the positive here. The final score is 42-6. My prediction going in was 52-17. So this is even better than I thought, frankly. Offensively, it's not. Offensively, that is not the game Oregon should have played. We'll get to that. But defensively, look, it was a bad opening drive. I'm not going to argue with you there. But, I mean, Oregon starters haven't allowed a touchdown since the third quarter of week 2. Hawaii starters, no touchdown. Colorado starters, no touchdown. Stanford, no touchdown, period. We all have wanted Dan Lanning to build a dominant defensive unit. Their biggest test is going to be their next game. 2 weeks from today, we'll know what the result of the game is against the Huskies. It should be College game day. It's going to be huge. Top 10 matchup. Probably the most highly touted meeting between those two rivals ever. That's not overstating things. I cannot think of a time when Oregon and Washington have both been this good at the exact same time. So I think that for the Ducks, this was a good outing overall. The defense is playing as well as we could have hoped. Like, after Texas Tech, you would have said, well, what's the best possible outcome for the next 3 games? I don't know. The starters not allowing a touchdown. Nobody has scored more than 10 points in the last 3 games. Have they been our best 3 opponents? No, but this is just not something that Oregon has always shown the capability to do. The defensive line looked good. The secondary looks fast. I mean, when Evan Williams or Tysheem Johnson come on a blitz, everybody better watch out. And before I just start calling the game, one of the last plays that I saw was a defensive gem by Jamal Hill. I tweeted it out. I think it was the last thing I tweeted before I had to get into play-by-play mode. And Jamal Hill made an outstanding tackle on a 3rd and 1 to get Oregon the ball back late in the first half, drove down the field, had a 38-yard try straight away, and Camden Lewis missed for the first time this year. I hope he's gotten all of his misses out for a while because we're going to need those sorts of points when we play Washington and, yes, USC, Utah, and Oregon State. So I think for the Ducks, this is a good outcome overall. It was not their best performance, and I'll get to that in a moment. But, I mean, we have to look at the positives here, which is the defense is playing well. Aside from Noah Whittington, we are relatively healthy, and the last 3 games have not been competitive in the fourth quarter, and they shouldn't have been. Ty Thompson's played 3 games in a row. He should have played more in this game. If the offense had woken up before, midway through the second quarter, I mean, my goodness. But, this is a reaction podcast, so as I kind of react to the box score, Bo Nix, 27-32 for 290 and 4 scores with 3 carries for 18 yards. I mean, what more do you need to see from this guy? Seriously. Jade Lamar, Dante Dowdell both had carries late in the game. Ty Thompson completed his 1 pass, it appears, to Chris Hudson. I wish Ty had gotten more run. He should have gotten more run. Look, it was not a good opening drive from the defense, but they held him to 3 points both times. Didn't allow him to even score a single point after that. That's what they should have done to a Stanford team that's really not very good, is in the midst of a rebuild in year 1, and they have a long way to go. And that's how you should play defensively. But offensively, Oregon was just asleep. I mean, the Ducks were asleep. Back-to-back 3-and-outs I mean, if you had 1 3-and-out over the course of the game, I'd say, well, it happens midway through the second quarter or something, or you have a couple incompletions, or maybe even your first drive is a little bit rusty. But, man, really? To start the game? Here's the tricky part. I don't know whether to blame that on the offense not being ready to go and having an emotional letdown from Colorado, or because at the farm, there are more Oregon fans than Stanford fans, according to people who were there. I, of course, was not. One day I dream. But, like in the broadcasting capacity, of course. But I just think that it can be tough to get up and get ready for a game when there's no ambiance. There's no environment. You know where Oregon also got off to a slow start? Last year at Cal. You know what Cal doesn't have? Much of a home environment. Even against Oregon, there were tens of thousands of people. That's not enough. And they're not that rabid. They're not that, avid about it. They're just kind of there to enjoy a game. They showed shots of the crowd. It's a lot of family people or alumni, people just out. Let's just go enjoy a football game. It's a fun thing to do. I'm going to support my school. But they're not there expecting to do anything crazy. And for the first, quarter and a half, it felt like, oh my gosh, is this going to be one of those Stanford games? Is this going to be? And then what I talked about all week and what I predicted to come to pass eventually did come to pass, which is Oregon is way better than Stanford in every respect. And they eventually took over. Now, I have a saying. Stats are a starting point, not an end point. So as I look at the box score and react to this, I see 28 carries for 208 yards, 2 scores, 7.4 yards a carry. Jordan James, 14.7 yards a carry. Bucky Irving, almost 7. That's all outstanding. You know what I saw on the first 2 drives? An inability to create running lanes. And then a fire had to be lit under you. That's what I would like to chalk it up to. That's the positive outlook for why Oregon was playing a competitive game as a 27.5 point favorite through 1.5 quarters of football. That's the best explanation that I can give. I hope that that's the correct explanation. Because if you come out and play like that against Washington, I got news for you. They're going to beat us. And they might beat us by 2 scores. You can't play like that. I suspect, though, it is the most likely explanation. I'm just saying it's not the only one. I suspect that when they're playing Washington, rivalry game, hostile environment, sold out crowd, big stage and everything like that, they'll be a little bit more motivated and focused. But they looked, the play calling was confusing. It was just, but everything was just blah. That's what it was offensively. Everything was just blah. And it was very uninspiring. And so that did not feel great. That did not feel great. But then once they got it going, Oregon showed why they're a dominant team right now when they play inferior opponents. And for the most part, they have been under Dan Lanning. And I wrote about this over at 750 The Game. This is a Dan Lanning administration that has done a great job of taking opponents that are not as good as the Ducks and beating them soundly and not letting them hang around. And that's why it was so weird to see the first quarter and a half. It's like, this isn't what usually happens. It just took us a while to find our footing. And eventually the Ducks did. And the Ducks pulled away and they scored 42 unanswered points. Would have been 45 if Cam didn't hit his field goal, but didn't end up needing that today. So like I said, get your misses out now. Lots more to react to in this one, including something that I liked early in the game offensively. I know, something to like early in the game offensively? Was it Nutrafol? Well, no, it wasn't, but that is something that we can all like. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Men think losing their hair is inevitable. Take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men, because losing your hair is not inevitable. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription, free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men, enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men. Enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Need a big old second segment sip after, a 3-hour football game, a 30-minute or so lightning delay. Got to keep the pipes fresh, as fresh as I can. So something offensively that I liked was getting the football to Kenyon Sadiq. He tried to hurdle somebody. It didn't work out, but he landed on his feet. I continue to see that guy having a role in the offense. I mean, athletically, he is not like most true freshmen. He's built to contribute and contribute now. And when I saw him make a catch and make a play, I thought, yeah, I think my kind of bold pick about what Kenyon Sadiq would be by the time the year came to a close, which is he'd be the number 2 or 3 tight end behind Terrence Ferguson. I like the way that looks. I like the way that looks a lot. So offensively, the numbers are good. They were not as stellar in the early portion of the game, but they figured it out. Another 100-yard day for Troy Franklin. He's probably going to be Oregon's first 1,000-yard receiver at this rate since 2018. That was Dylan Mitchell. A couple of scores, 7 catches, 117 yards. I mean, it's Troy Franklin with Bo Nix. Like, that is just as prolific of a quarterback-wide receiver combo as we've seen. They are always in sync all the time. T-Ferg had a tight end. Trayshawn Holden had a tight end, had a touchdown. Trayshawn Holden also had a touchdown. And, the box score looks really, really good for the Ducks. And I think that's great and all, but we also know what transpired in the first quarter and a half, which is, all right, this better just have been the environment or else, there are issues, which, as I said, I suspect that it is. But once Oregon got the ball rolling here, 28-0 in the second half, 21-0 in the third quarter, they really cranked it up. Credit Stanford, by the way. Great game plan. Great game plan. They had the ball first, and they just marched down the field. And they were just running the football, and they were using the clock, and they were keeping Bo Nix on the sideline. That was their only chance to win the football game. And it worked, and then eventually Oregon's talent caught up to them. Defensively, let's see. Again, I had not taken a look at these stats before I came on to record the show, hence the live reaction component of it. 5 sacks. Oof, I love that number. 5 passes defended. 11 tackles for loss. Like it. Stanford quarterbacks, 14-24 for 133 yards. Remember when pass defense was a problem last year? Well, it's gotten better. It has gotten better. More on the defense and just how much better it might be in that'll come later in the show, pertaining to a game that we were not watching as this one took place, but we were watching earlier this morning. So Bo Nix, again, spreading the football around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different targets, catching passes. One of those was from Ty Thompson, of course, who continues to have good numbers. I really wish we'd gotten to see more of him. Only one pass attempt in this game. I thought this was a game where he could have been playing the whole fourth, but the offense's sluggish start prevented that from happening. Next chance for Ty to play will be either Cal or Arizona State. I don't think we blow out anybody else. A lot of good teams on Oregon's schedule, which we get into the meat of after the bye. Stanford on the ground had a lot of success on that opening drive. Then Oregon made some adjustments. Then Oregon woke up. 1.9 yards a carry, 89 rushing yards on 46 carries for the Cardinal. I said going into the game, the defensive front should dominate. They did. The secondary should dominate. They did. The offensive line eventually got it going. Bo Nix was not sacked. There were just 2 tackles for loss on the Stanford side of things. So it all ended up working out in the end. It just wasn't the start we were hoping for. Hoping that Kyrie Jackson's okay. No, he went down with an injury, I think, a couple different times. But, I mean, I saw Dante Manning having a good game. Steve Stevens, by the way, led the Ducks in tackles with 8. Evan Williams not far behind him with 7. That sort of production from safeties was sorely lacking in 2022. Nice to see that. And our third leading tackler, tied for third, that's Tysheem Johnson. Those dudes fly around, really good on blitzes. I think Tosh Lupoy has done a great job of dialing up pressure when he needs to. And this defense looks as good as we could hope for right now. I mean, the Texas Tech game, penalties were bad, but guess what? They've only gotten better. So let's check in on that going into this game. Now, there were 3 areas that I thought Oregon could improve upon or make themselves better going into the Washington game. Number 1, penalties. Number 2, third down defense. Number 3, avoid injuries. I think for the most part, we've avoided injuries, assuming Kyrie Jackson's okay. Definitely need him against Washington's receivers. Third down defense, Stanford 6 for 18. I will take that. 33% conversion rate. I will take that. Penalties, Oregon 2 for 20 yards. Progress. That is beautiful. 2 for 20 yards. Outstanding, magnificent, superb, A+. The second half Oregon team that we saw, or that most of you saw live, I still have to go back and watch the game in full and such, but the second half team on display here is what we have to take up to Seattle in 2 weeks. That's what Oregon has to do. They've got to be able to play like that. Penalty free, get off the field on third down, pressure the quarterback. So Oregon now in their last 3 games against Power 5 opponents, they had 4 sacks against Texas Tech, 7 against the Buffs, 5 against the Cardinal. That's 16 sacks. That's just against the Power 5 teams, which is all that really matters. I mean, that is an excellent display of defense. And this unit, once again, gives us a clear piece of evidence that they are improved. And they are going to be tested in a big way against a Washington team that played solid, not great, but solid, against a stingy Arizona team down in Tucson. We know very well how difficult it is to go down in the desert and win. So Oregon lost the time of possession battle here. The first quarter was like 13 minutes to 90 seconds or something like that in favor of Stanford. Pretty hilarious. But Oregon didn't force any turnovers in this game, but guess what? They didn't need that against Colorado either, and they have now won each of their last 2 games, 42-6. I don't care if you force turnovers. As long as you are winning the game by a lot against the teams that you should win games by a lot, I'm happy. I'm good with it. So overall, this is a positive result on both sides of the ball. Would like to have seen a better start. Frankly, given that Texas Tech is the best front 7 we've played, and that's been where Oregon has struggled to run the ball the most, I do still have a couple questions about the run game. Washington's front 4 and front 7 writ large, but especially the front 4, much better than anything we have seen so far. And got to be prepared for that. Washington defense is a little underrated. They are a good football team. I think our defense is better, but this is going to be the best defensive unit we have seen so far. Better than Texas Tech, better than Colorado, better than Stanford. So hopefully they're able to find success on the ground. Again, the numbers look great, but I mean, they came out, and there never should have been a time where Stanford was in control of the game, but they were for a quarter and a half. And then for the next 2.5 quarters, Oregon turned up the gas, and it was all gas, no brakes, and they scored 42 straight. Awesome. That's awesome. Can't have those sorts of slow starts against really good football teams. In this conference, they're going to make you pay. They're just going to make you pay. So good performance, good numbers. Bo Nix Heisman campaign, alive and well. He just keeps putting up really efficient, highly productive football games in big wins for the Ducks. And he's going to have a big stage and a chance for a Heisman moment. Frankly, whichever team wins 2 weeks from now, I just thought of this, the quarterback is probably the Heisman frontrunner or close to it. I think Penix is the stronger candidate right now. He's the betting favorite in the odds markets. But Bo Nix certainly has a chance, and if he goes into Seattle and beats Michael Penix, that can't hurt. So that could be fun to discuss, which we will kind of later as we get closer to it. But yeah, I like what I see from the defense here. Bad start, made adjustments, which was a problem last year, right? Last year, Washington, Oregon State, no adjustments. This year, we've seen adjustments, right? Texas Tech had a bunch of big plays, we made adjustments. Colorado was running or Stanford was running the football, we made adjustments. Colorado, we just had a dominant game plan, came out, kicked their butts. And that was still fantastic. And Oregon wins another one here against Stanford, 2 in a row, and they avenged their 2021 loss from that dreadful, dreadful game on the farm. So just how good is that defense, though? Well, perhaps as good as we'd like it to be. eBay Motors is as good as you'd like it to be. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Mine is called the Red Rocket. It's a 2000 ES300. It is my pride and joy, mechanically speaking. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. ebay.com/motors. Oh, man. I got to pull up the box score for this one. Right now, we're trying to understand how good Oregon's defense truly is. Because in the last 3 games, they literally could not have played better. I don't care who your opponents are. They gave up a touchdown, the starting unit did, once upon a time to Portland State. Guess what? In the last 3 games, they've been committing fewer and fewer penalty yards. And they have been playing better and better, looking better and better. And boy, oh boy. How does that Colorado game look right now? Did anyone else see what happened in Boulder? Stop me if you've heard this one before. Lincoln Riley's teams don't play any defense. Oh, you've heard that before? You've seen it? Yeah, we've watched it play out every year. So it's been difficult at some level to have a barometer of how good Oregon's defense is capable of being. I think given the Texas Tech game and kind of the early portion of the Stanford game, which I'm not that concerned about, but, was still some piece of evidence to consider. Maybe not as much, like I'd consider Texas Tech, an 8 out of 10 barometer and Stanford a 3 out of 10. But on the road, it hasn't been the same defense all the time, but at home, it's been utterly dominant. It has been outstanding. So last week, if you recall, we had the same score. We had the same score against Colorado at home. And that Colorado team came in with one of the best passing offenses statistically in the country, but they were without their number one receiver, Travis Hunter, right? So that's going to hurt the offense a little bit. So they go back home, and they play USC. And USC early on is rolling them. I mean, they are rolling them. And then they weren't. They were up 20 points at the half. Now, if you recall, Oregon was up 35-0. USC was up 34-14. That's right about where I thought it would be. I was like, oh, okay. I predicted that game to be, I think, 48 to 20. And I said, yeah, that's about where the game's going to be. Final score, USC 48, Colorado 41. Yikes. Here's a fun stat. Colorado against the Ducks didn't have a great day offensively. Just how bad was it? Well, they amassed a total of 199 yards. Against USC, who's still a really good offense, by the way. I do not think we're going to roll over them. I do think we're going to be able to score with them. USC goes in there. Gives up, wait for it, 564 total yards to the Buffs. I don't know if there are any math majors listening to or watching this show right now. But 564 is about way more than double what Oregon allowed. USC's defense was on the road. Granted, that is worth, I don't know, a touchdown, maybe 10 points. I mean, Oregon's defense has been worse on the road. Granted, They didn't allow 41 points. 41 points to the Buffs. Shedeur Sanders, who went for 159 yards against the Ducks, went for 371 and 4 scores. Colorado, this is my favorite part. Colorado is one of the worst rushing teams in America. They run for, coming into this game, like 60 yards per contest. They went for 193 against USC. So what I am saying here about Oregon is that defensive performance against Colorado has got merit to it, because that's a Pac-12 title contender in USC. And I can definitively say, seeing as how they gave up 28 points to San Jose State, to Arizona State, who put up 21 against Cal, by the way, and 41 to Colorado, that, Oregon's defense is a heck of a lot better than USC's. And I don't think Colorado had a great day, but Oregon dominated them. And that game, even more so now because of this result, is about Oregon's defense and how well they played. Because Colorado is clearly capable of playing Power 5 opponents, quality ones, and putting up a bunch of points. Travis Hunter available or not. They did it with Travis Hunter at TCU, 45 points. TCU, by the way, solid football team. Did not see if they won today. I'm actually kind of curious, so I'm just checking on ESPN real quick. TCU lost to West Virginia. Ouch. Still, that's going to be an above 500 football team. USC is going to win anywhere from 9 to 11 games in the regular season. Colorado knows how to score points, and they can do it. Nebraska, Colorado State are respectable, not great, but respectable G5. TCU, and now USC. The Buffs put up a bunch of points, and Oregon silenced them. The starters didn't allow a touchdown. So that performance looks a heck of a lot better. That's a great note to end today on. More reaction coming on Monday. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, go Ducks.